Hello there and welcome to Can Sanity. It's peach season and so today we're going to be making peach salsa. Okay, so first let's talk peaches. When I am ready to do my peach salsa and other preserves with peaches, I go out to the farmer's market and I pick up at least a bushel. And a bushel this year cost me $55. And a bushel would be 3 boxes like this, and that would be the equivalent of a whole bushel. And so I had the goo-goo eyes for peaches this year, and I bought 3 bushels, so I'm going to be quite busy. But one thing I want to tell you is that when you are going to make your peach salsa, buy your peaches at least 3 or 4 days before you're going to be making the salsa, because when you get them fresh from the farmer's market or from a farmer, they're picked fresh that day or within a day. And so the skin will really adhere really tightly to the peach. So you want to let the peach ripen up a bit before you make your salsa, because if you try to make the salsa when right from a fresh peach, it'll be really hard to get the peel to come away from the flesh. And so buy your peaches 3 to 4 days before you're going to be making your salsa. Okay, let's talk about the rest of the ingredients. You're going to need cilantro, and if you don't like cilantro, you can substitute parsley or leave out the herb altogether, and this also will turn out really nice. You're going to need a hot pepper. I like to use serrano. Serranos are a pepper that I grow in my garden specifically to use in salsas. And so you'll need 2 of these, about 2 of these serranos. You'll need 2 tablespoons minced, and so I have that already done. You're going to need sweet onion, and I like to use red onion, and I grew these in my garden this year, and I've already diced that up, and you'll need 1 cup of diced sweet onion. And then you'll need 1/2 cup of red bell pepper diced. And then for the citrus, or for the acidity, you'll need 1/4 cup of cider vinegar and 1/2 cup of freshly squeezed lime juice, straight. So I've already measured that out as well. Then you're going to need, for flavorings, 5 tablespoons of sugar, which I measured out as well, 1 teaspoon of crushed red chili flake, and 4 teaspoons of kosher salt. And so I've measured all this out, and so I'm going to get started and show you all the tips that I've learned along the way. Okay, first tip is put your water in your canning pot and turn it on and bring it up to a boil. And put your pot on that you're going to blanch the peaches and get that to a rolling boil while you're preparing the rest of your ingredients. Second tip, to keep your herbs fresh, put them immediately in a jar of water, and then create a little greenhouse by putting a bag over top of it, and then your herbs will stay fresh for 3 days, sometimes 5 days. So it makes it much better for when you're going to be processing and making salsas, is to do this, because then you can buy it a couple days in advance. You're not having to run out and get that the actual day that you are doing your salsa. The third tip is always, 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 when you're chopping your hot peppers, wear gloves. One of the first times I made salsa with a friend, she did not wear gloves, and she chopped jalapenos and hot peppers, and wow, she was in pain for a whole couple hours before that subsided. So wear your gloves when you're chopping hot peppers. Okay, the next tip is microwave your lime for 20 seconds and then roll it on the counter before you cut it open and squeeze the juice out of the lime, and you will get more juice. Okay, and the last tip I'm going to give you before I start making the salsa is make sure that the pot of water that you are using to blanch your peaches has a rolling boil before you put your peaches in, because you want it really hot, and that will help separate the peel from the flesh. We already talked about the fact that your peaches should be 3 or 4 days old after buying them from the market, and you're going to score them with a knife, put an X on them, and then you're going to put them in boiling hot water. Okay, you want to add your peaches all at once. This is 5 pounds of peaches that are I weighed out, which is about 15 peaches. So add them all at once. And set your timer for 1 minute. Okay, so I've used this to scoop out the peaches, and I'll just dump them in as I get them out. And you want to use a strainer like this so that you don't take a lot of hot water with you when you go to cool off your peaches. And just give that a swirl. And you can see the peel is just coming off. It's perfect. Okay, another tip to prevent browning of your peaches, you can fill a bowl with 6 cups of water and add 6 tablespoons of lemon juice. Now this is optional. If you don't mind that your salsa might look more orange brown, then you don't need to do this, but whenever I'm peeling peaches, this is what I do. So I'm just going to get my bowl ready. Okay, so I've peeled and sliced most of the peaches, but I just wanted to show you, look how beautiful this is, that the peels just slip right off. And no effort whatsoever. And look how beautiful that peach is. And so then I just run a knife and I take a slice out like that, and I just slice it up, and do that for all the peaches. Okay, so in order to not bring a lot of extra liquid into your pot for your salsa, you want to use your strainer to pull your peaches out, so that you can then take your slices and now dice them. So I just make sure that I get out the water, and then I pour some onto my bowl like that, and then, or not my bowl, my cutting board, and then I just slice them. And just medium size. The peach will break down a bit when it's cooking, so you don't want to make it too small. So this is about the size that I'm cutting them. Okay, you'll add your ½ cup of diced red bell pepper, your 2 tablespoons of serranos, 1 cup of red sweet onion. I like red. I like using red personally because it adds, the skin of the onion will add a little bit more color to the salsa, so that's what I prefer to use. ½ cup of freshly squeezed lime juice, strained. ¼ cup of cider vinegar. 6 tablespoons of sugar. Sorry, 5 tablespoons of sugar. 4 teaspoons of kosher salt and 1 teaspoon of crushed red chili flakes. I'm just going to stir that up and put it on the stove top and bring it up to a boil, and as soon as it starts to boil, when it's at a full boil, then reduce it to a simmer and simmer it for 30 minutes. Okay, so here's my 2 tablespoons of chopped cilantro. I just took the leaves off, discarded the stem, and just now that this has been simmering for 30 minutes, it's time to take it off the heat and add the cilantro. Okay, now it's time to fill the jars. I've put my ladle, my funnel, a spoon, and everything that I'm going to use in this 8-cup glass measure. And so just to sterilize it, so I've take my funnel out, my needle, and now I'm going to fill the jars to about a quart until it's a 1/4 inch headspace. Not about, it has to be a 1/4 inch headspace. So I start off making sure that I get lots of peaches in the jar. So I move along. I'll come back to that one and fill it to the right headspace, but I always start just to make sure that I get a lot of peaches in every single jar and I don't end up with just a bunch of liquid in the last one. My jars have been sterilized. I run them through the dishwasher first, and then I put them in a 225-degree oven for 10 minutes. That's how I sterilize my rings and my jars. I'm going to keep them hot, so I left them in the oven until just before filling. You should get 8 jars, 250 milliliter size. You might end up with a little bit left over. Sometimes if you boil it a little bit too long too, or you leave it on a higher boil before you turn it down, you boil off more liquid, or you get it just slightly less than 8. Around it all. Fill them so that they're 1/4 inch. That headspace is very important. You have to follow the instructions accurately there. If you have a little less or a little more, the jars won't seal and your preserve will not be shelf stable. So now that I've filled them most of the way, I can take that funnel right off there. And now you need to run either a utensil like this, plastic utensil, which I have, Tupperware, it's an orange peeler, but it works really well for this. And you can just make sure that you have no air in there. So you could do it that way, or you could just use a spoon. Ooh, that's hot. And just make sure you get the air out. That will also affect your sealing if you have a pocket of air in there, so make sure you give it a stir. I'm just going to use this because this is probably what most people will do. Now make sure that you're patient with yourself here. Don't rush. This is hot salsa in here in a hot jar. You have time. So make sure that you do this accurately. So you see I have lots of headspace here still. So I'm going to add, first grab some more peaches if I can. Those. Now I'm going to check the headspace. So I'm going to push those peaches in. And that one's pretty good. That's a quarter inch. This one looks like a little bit too much. I'll actually add a little bit of liquid over here. Now if you're unsure about what a quarter inch looks like on your jars, don't guess. Grab a ruler and mark an inch so it's easy for you to see, and just measure what a quarter inch looks like. And bring it up to your jar and just make sure that that's accurate. Some of the jars they're made differently from one year to the next, and this one has a little bit more, it's taller and thinner, so it's a little deceiving about where the headspace is. So I'm just going to have to take a little bit out of this one, and then I'll measure again. Now, even though you've done this really carefully, like you can see I'm being very careful, it is still potential that one won't seal, a jar might not seal. And if there's a little dent in the ring, that can cause a jar not to seal. Don't sweat it. Okay, so that's all done. Now I'm going to take a paper towel, and I have my boiling water there, and I'm just going to wet it, and you want to just wipe the rims. If there is a piece of food on the top of that rim and you put your lid in, it might prevent the sealing, so don't skip this step. My years of canning have made my fingertips numb to heat, so this is boiling hot, but it's not, it doesn't really bother me. And after you've done this, take another look and see, do you think that you have the headspace correct? Now I have this boiling hot water. I'm going to add 8 snap lids because I have 8 jars here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And one more. Snap lids are really expensive in comparison to the years past. I bought them in a box today at $5.49 when I can remember getting them for $1.29 or maybe even 99 cents. Okay, so we let that sit in there for 30 seconds. And then you can take them out. Don't leave them in there for 5 minutes. You don't want to, this is just to loosen the seal a bit. Don't leave it in there for a long time. You don't want to break down the seal. So 30 seconds is really all you need. Okay, I'm just continuing on here, putting the rings on. You want to put them on just to fingertip tightness. So give it a spin, and if I find that I have any lid that has a ring that has resistance, like I tried this one here and it just didn't seem to spin right, so I thought I'm not going to take a chance. I'm just going to use another sterilized ring and just give it just fingertip tightness. Now I tried this ring as well, and look at that, there's some dents. I don't know if you can see that. That might actually cause my seal to fail, so I'll discard any of those. Usually I check those before I sterilize them, but anyways, I always sterilize a little bit of extra rings, and just in case I have to discard some. So again, just to fingertip tightness. You want the air to be able to come out of the jars. That's the point of the water bath processing. And now these are ready to go in the water bath. Okay, so now I'm going to add the jars using my jar lift and just lower them in slowly. You want to leave about, if you can, an inch apart from the wall, from the jars and from the wall of the pot. Now I'm just using a canning mat at the bottom of it, bottom of this pot, and I love it. As the jars process, they move around a little bit in here, but that's okay. This pot with 8 as max. Okay, now I'll put the lid back on and make sure that my temperatures are high, because I want this to come to a full boil before I start my timer, and I'm going to process these for 10 minutes once it starts boiling. Okay, so I shut the pot off with the lid on, and I let it sit for 5 minutes before taking the lid off. That's to prevent siphoning, or to minimize siphoning, and usually with salsa you don't do that, but this has got a little bit more liquid than a regular salsa, so I do it. So now I'm just going to use my jar lid, and jar lift, and I'm just going to take the jars out. Don't worry about the water that's on the top of the jar. You don't want to tilt it, it'll just evaporate. Oh, success! That's what you want to hear, is that snap. Okay, so all 8 jars sealed, yay! And so that means we're going to have some beautiful salsa to enjoy all winter long. Now I have a lot of peaches to still process, so I'm going to be doing canning some peaches in light syrup, and I'm also going to be making some classic peach jam. And all those recipes are at cansanity.com, including the peach salsa. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are enjoying the Can Sanity videos, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell so that you receive notifications when we produce a new video. Again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great day.